Okay, today the first thing we're going to be looking at, we're going to look at the bell work that you had. The bell work should have been on a purple sheet. Should have been 4 graphing problems where you're graphing from standard form. So we'll just run through the answers there. Hopefully this is pretty straightforward. This is stuff that we would have covered last Thursday when I was in class. So if we run through these quick, again, if I go too fast, just have pause the video so that you can catch up with this. But please follow along. So to find an x-intercept, if you remember, we did that cover up where we cover up the y's. So we're really looking at the equation negative 2x is equal to a 12. And then we divide by the negative 2 and we'd get x is equal to a negative 6. So for an x-intercept, the x is negative 6, the y would be a 0. For the y-intercept, you cover up the x's and you'd have 4y is equal to a 12. We divide by the 4 and you get y is equal to a 3. So this x is a 0, the y is a 3. To graph it, again, I'd go to the x-axis, I'd find a negative 6. Go to the y-axis, find a 3, and I would draw the line. Okay, for number 2 here, to find that x-intercept, cover up the y's, so the equation you're left with is x is equal to an 8, which simply means your x-intercept is 8, 0. And to find the y-intercept, you cover up the x, so you'd have a negative 2y is equal to an 8. If you divide by the negative 2, you get y is equal to a negative 4, which means your y-intercept is 0, negative 4. So on the x-axis, I go to 8, 0. On the y-axis, I go to a negative 4. And once again, you draw the line. Okay, hopefully that's making sense to us. Hopefully you're able to do these. If we flip to the next ones, for number 3, if you want to find an x-intercept, you'd cover up your y. So you'd have the equation 2x is equal to a 6. Divide by that 2, and you'd have x is equal to a 3. So your x-intercept would be 3, 0. If you want to find a y-intercept, you cover up your x's, and you'd simply be left with y is equal to 6. So your ordered pair here would be a 0, 6. If you graph it, the x-intercept is a 3, the y-intercept is a 6, and you would draw the line. Okay, next one, to find the x-intercept, you cover up the y's, so you'd have a negative 3x is equal to a 6. You divide by that negative 3, and you get x is equal to a negative 2, which means your x-intercept would be a negative 2, 0. To find the y-intercept, you cover up your x's, so you got a 2y is equal to a 6. Divide by the 2, and the y would be a 3, so your ordered pair would be 0, 3. So your x-intercept is negative 2, 0. Y-intercept is 0, 3. And we draw the line, and there you would have it. Okay. Next thing we're going to be looking at is graphing from standard form. Or excuse me, not graphing, but rewriting equations from standard form. And again, these are notes that you should be looking at now. You should have the blue sheet in your hands, the blue sheet on rewriting into standard form. That's what it should say at the top. So the first thing you notice on that note sheet is what standard form is again. Standard form, it's ax plus by is equal to c. We know that a and b cannot both be zeros. The a, b, and c must be integers, which means no fractions or decimals. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be getting things into standard form, which means the x's and y's are on the same side. So if I look at this first slide here, and we're asking ourselves, how could I get these into standard form? And again, these are right on your note sheet along with me. So please work through them as I work through them on the board. So our first step on this one would be minusing 2x. If we minus 2x from both sides, I would now have a negative 2x. I'd still have plus a y equals a negative 6. That would be your equation then in standard form. Your x's and your y's are on the same side. You have coefficients with the x and the y that are integers, and there's no fractions. Okay, for this next one, to get these x's to the other side, I would add 3x. Since there's no other x's on this side, I would just have 3x. I'd still have plus a y equals a 1. Okay, for the next one, to get those x's to the other side, if I wanted to cancel out a positive 7x, I would minus 7x from both sides, and I would get a negative 7x plus a y is equal to a 2. So those three would now be in standard form. If I go down to the next line, and I wanted to get these into standard form, this time to move this negative 2/3 x, I would add 2/3 x to both sides. And so I got 2/3 x plus a y is equal to a negative 7. So now the question becomes, well, I can't have fractions. So to clear out the fraction, what I'm going to do, I'm simply going to multiply by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by a 3. If you take 2/3 times 3, 2/3 times 3, if I do a little side work here, 2/3 times 3 is like 2/3 times 3 over 1. What I would get is 6 over 3, which does reduce to just a 2, which in other words, you're just left with this numerator. So I would have 2x now, plus if you take 3 times the y, you'd have 3y. If you take 3 times the negative 7, you'd have a negative 21. So that would be your equation now in standard form. For the next one, we got a 3/4 x plus a y is equal to a 5. So to get that 3/4 to the other side, I'm going to minus 3/4 of an x. And what I'd be left with is a negative 3/4 of an x plus a y is equal to a 5. Okay, so now for this one, since on the previous one we multiplied by a 3, on this one I'm going to multiply by a 4 to cancel out that denominator. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by a 4. If I think about that, 4 times a negative 3/4, that would be a negative 12 over a 4, or once again, that reduces to just a negative 3. So I'm just left with this negative 3. So I get a negative 3x. I multiply the 4 times the y, and I get a 4y. Multiply the 4 times the 5, and I get a 20. Okay, so if you think through this next one, first of all, you should be thinking, how can I move the negative 7/2 to the other side? And that would be by adding 7 over 2x. So I'm going to add 7 over 2x. What I'd be left with is 7 over 2x plus a y equals a negative 8. Then the next thing you should be thinking is, how do I get rid of the fraction? And for that, you should be thinking of multiplying by the denominator, which is a 2. And we found out on the other 2 that if you multiply by that denominator, all you're left with is your numerator. So you'd have a 7x. You multiply the 2 times the y, and you'd get a 2y. The 2 times the negative 8, and you'd get a negative 16. So now all these on this page are rewritten into standard form. Okay, for the next page now. Next page, here's what we have to do. Now we're going from point slope form into standard form. So the idea again is just like before, all we want on one side is x's and y's. On the other side, we want a number. So for the first one, we should be thinking through the process of how do I rewrite it into slope-intercept form first. So here again, we've done this. We distribute, and you'd have y minus 2 is equal to 2x plus a 10. And then we would have added 2. And once I have it then in slope-intercept form, then I can just think about what I did on the last slide, which was be moving the x's to the other side. So once you get it into slope-intercept, this is slope-intercept, I then get it into point slope by moving the x's to the other side. So minus 2x from both sides, and you'd have a negative 2x plus a y equals a 12. Now I got it into standard form. Okay, so I'm going from point slope into slope-intercept and then into standard. Okay, for this next one, same process. I distribute the negative 3. So I get a negative 3x plus a 3 on that side. Over here, I got a y plus a 5. So I'd minus the 5 off. and I would have y equals a negative 3x minus 2. Once again, this form right here is slope-intercept form. Okay, from there, I move the x's to the other side by adding 3x, and I'd have 3x plus a y is equal to a negative 2. And again, that would now be in standard form. Okay, for the last one, we're just going to add one extra step to it. Our first step would be to distribute. So if I distribute, I would have 3 over 2 in x. And if I have to take 3 over 2 times a 4, that'd be like 4 over 1. So I'm going to get 12 over 2, and 12 over 2 is a 6. Okay, so I'm going to have 3 over 2x minus a 6, and over here I'm going to have a y minus 2 still. Okay, my next step, I would simply add the 2 to both sides to get it into slope-intercept form, and that would be y equals 3 over 2x minus a 4. Then just like on the previous slide, that'd be minus 3 over 2x, and I'd get a negative 3 over 2x plus a y equals negative 4. And then our final step would be to get rid of the fraction by multiplying by a 2. And again, if we do that, all I'm left with in this first one is a negative 3x. 2 times the y would be 2y. 2 times the negative 4 would be a negative 8. Okay, so that takes you through the lesson for the day. What you have now is you have a pink sheet where you have 10 problems to do on your own. So please take a look at those at this time.